And now with Season 5, we return to multi-episode arcs, this time more evenly distributed with 5 packs of 3. But don't let the higher quantity make you think these are any less lore heavy than what we had in Season 3. If anything, it all kicks into an even higher gear than before. But no special intros this time. Curses. I'll also say up front, these mini-stories have a lot more tying them together than Season 3 did, which I believe only did so with the Yeti thing. It's not 100% consistent or even really integral here, these all still more than stand on their own. But as we go through these, you'll notice how they subtly reference each other. Also, most of these take us back to the very different periods in the history of the show's world, allowing us to get more of a look at eras that have been hinted at but never outwardly seen. Case in point, the first of these brings us to this very untamed, very young, very pink and purple prehistoric world, and only a couple days into its life, a flower sprouts where none other than Barb is born. And despite being 60 years old in appearance, she doesn't quite have any idea on what anything else is, or what kind of roles he's meant to play in this world, so she kinda makes everything up as she goes. These bratty plants here try to get her to drive away the spotted bears bothering them.
You! Sir! Tell me what the problem is. Bears are eating us, sir!
Which she manages to do, only for the problem to become worse. So she gets exiled onto the top of the mountain, where she meets Ulf, the one lonely fern, and in this moment of literal reflection, Barb decides to take up inventing concepts like sleeping, skills, and talking in the third person. Mostly done through acronyms that would make the kids next door proud.
Sound lounging every evening, please. Sleep.
Even though there's a weird philosophical bend to it all, there's something plain fun about just seeing this naive creature experiment with such simple activities and acknowledge how these function differently per individual. And then she suddenly mentions terms such as mass production like some anachronistic fracture of history. It's the kind of contrast that's sudden enough to be funny, but not so jarring that it's immersion breaking. It's a cute little fantasy world, just go with what you're seeing. So anyway, after Barb puts the bears to rest and creates more of herself thanks to the jelly pool, this weird, really freaking creepy sheep and zebra come in to take the jelly pool for themselves. Like I said, just go with it. And Barb manages to outwit them through both distraction and, of course, tickling them to sleep. With, I guess, a bit of drunkenness.
Oh, but where's the fun? What's happening?
Despite that turn, I find this whole arc really charming in just how low-key and unique it is. It retains enough of that character and atmosphere to still feel like Summer Camp Island.
Got him with the old point where it isn't. Newest trick in the book. Worked like a charm, just like
rather than a total out-of-left-field diversion. And it fills a few holes about this weird mystical character that, while a bit on the hand-wavy side, are more entertaining to witness than one would originally think. And even though complimenting the show's backdrops frankly should go without saying at this point, I just have to mention how fantastic these in particular look. Sure, the purples and pinks may get tiring for some, but I personally dig how they look together, and even beyond that, man, just look at how packed with detail some of these are. It's insanely beautiful stuff. So yeah, pretty cute start to the season. It may not be that integral to the story at large, but it's always fun to get more world building, and you really can't go much further back in the timeline than this. Plus, if you did want more serious drama, the rest of the pack leaves no shortage of that. Yep, there's that drama I was just talking about. So now we flash back, or I guess flash forward given the last story, to when Ramona first left Susie for frozen time. Naturally, their distant friendship really takes a big toll on Susie's mental health, and as witches tend to do, she burps out her built-up emotions, manifesting it into a ghost. Specifically, the same ghost boy that Oscar and Hedgehog met all the way back in episode 8.
I'd rather tell you all my thoughts and feelings about loss. Or our thoughts and feelings, am I right?
As you'd expect, she tries to get rid of him but is only able to do so upon reuniting with these ghost dads, and if that wasn't enough, we see this whole freaking society of ghosts populated entirely by Susie's burps through the years. some of which bring back certain repressed memories that clearly leave her uncomfortable.
Does everyone here know Susie?
Yes, son. Of course.
We were all created the same way you were. Graciously!
So much is implied about Susie in so little time thanks to this metaphor. Almost like these are things we are soon going to learn about her. But then we pivot to Betsy, being the last witch to come along, immortal alongside Alice, and not quite as much a natural at magic as her peers. She's feeling a sort of imposter syndrome among them. This becomes a problem when they do try to initiate her through a marginally rude activity that she's just too nice to follow through on.
You didn't do it! You definitely said hi to that fifth Yeti!
Only for them to get caught in an avalanche which everyone but Betsy is able to poof away from, leaving her lost and alone in the forest.
Dear Mom and Dad, I'm making friends. I'm part of the group. Everybody loves me.
Where she runs into, who else? The ghost boy. And a lot of the story from that point on is just seeing these two bounce off each other, and it feels so natural the way they hit it off too. Betsy's been overwhelmed by her new life and just needs someone to talk to who will listen, which the naive ghost is more than happy to do.
Honestly, not feeling super receptive to friendship as a topic right now.
Will you kindly list some topics?
You know, politics, literature, yesterday's weather, emotional repression, universal entropy, ooh, or pants.
I know pants.
He knows pants.
I love pants. I don't own any, but I've looked at them a bunch.
All the while they get to settle down and enjoy some of the simple things, from having fun in a pants store, which by the way is run by one of the show's writers,
I'm Jock Pendarvis, and I've touched every pair of pants you see before you.
to Betsy just deciding to try being a ghost herself. And by the way, this form is way cuter than it has any right to be.
You just gotta flex your muscles. Yeah, that's it. You're gonna do great.
Honestly, as utterly simple as so much of what they get up to is, they're just so innocent together that you can't help but be charmed by it. Sadly though, it just wasn't meant to be, because just as they were about to confess their love for each other, a misunderstanding prompts Susie to wipe Ghost's memory, ending with the two being split up, leaving Susie with yet another regret on her plate. Oof.
Oh, hello. Who are you? Who am I? Am I supposed to meet somebody? I guess I would remember if it was important.
A fittingly dour note to end a tale of emotional baggage, showing the lasting impacts they can leave on both yourself and those around you, when it's okay to just let it all go, and when you must face it head on, when it can blossom into a friendship, and when it can break friendships. Typical Summer Camp Island, you come for the cute kids, but stay for the relatable trauma. However, this only holds way more true with... Ooh boy, I am so not ready to talk about Susie and Her Sister. Just to set the stage, my first time watching the series, Susie and Ramona came really dang close to making me cry, but this one actually did it for me. And that's because this little trilogy is, no exaggeration, a legit tragedy. Very little is played for laughs, and for the most part, you're just seeing these two young witch sisters get repeatedly put through the ringer. Heck, even the very beginning sets the mood by accompanying the visual of little ragamuffin Susie with this unusually sad piano music. So yeah, this is another flashback story of hers. This time going back to when she was 2 years old with her parents, specifically when her mother gave birth to a real prodigy, some may say rogue toddler, by the name of Mildred. Yep, we're finally pulling that pin. Not only does this intimidate Susie by outdoing her, but very quickly the nearby town gets scared by her out-of-control spells, most of which involve conjuring frogs. This gets so escalated that their parents must leave them with their great-great-great-grandma Agnes while they find a potion for Mildred in the frozen north.
I can't stand kids. No off to bed with you, you little snuts!
We then see the two sisters leave their crappy barn to venture into London, selling hot corn for a friendly housekeeper who took them in. This all happens in the first 11 minutes. That's how compact the story is. And yet, it's not to a fault. The emotional beats all still register well, and each plot shift is communicated quite effectively, with seamless transitions from one to the next. But getting back to the story, their seemingly peaceful living quarters come crumbling down upon the day of Susie's gibbous rite, basically a witch's maturity ritual, and so much shit goes down from here.
That's just what you get with old Mildred.
The parents get lost on their journey home in a very spine-chilling bit, leading Susie to foolishly take an immortality potion given to her from some bullies.
If it was always my 15th birthday, then I could just wait till Mum and Pop get back. Whenever that is. Adulthood's just a bunch of chores and small talk anyway, I presume.
Mildred, who still hasn't gotten the hang of her abilities, accidentally wrecks her sister's family heirlooms. She takes the potion herself and runs away to the forest where she talks to this little fart ghost.
Hey, when did you say Susie was coming? I don't have any plans, but I do have anxiety.
She convinces herself to make things right by traveling over to the frozen north herself. All the while, Susie is sent away to America before she ever has the chance to apologize. And to tug on her heartstrings even further, their trips were literally side by side with each other. Just, God, they were so freaking close, and now they're further apart than ever before. This really is just a bunch of negative situations piling on top of each other, all centered around two witches who, like many sisters, struggle to get along even though they clearly mean well. Despite how jealous and annoyed Susie got at Mildred at a young age, she was clearly determined to look out for her in their parents' absence.
We're young?
Yeah!
We're strong?
Yeah! And we can do this with our thumbs!
And when Susie gets mocked by these bully witches, Mildred actively stands up for her, despite her misguided direction. And even with the massive fight that breaks out between them, the many mistakes they make, and all the pain left lingering by the end, they still have too much unconditional love for those negative feelings to last long. They may physically be further apart than ever before, but their emotional connection never goes away.
Will you send Mildred my way when you find her?
Oh, don't worry.
I'm just gonna say it, this may very well be one of the single most moving, beautiful, and impactful stories to ever come out of Cartoon Network Studios. And it's from the silly little Animal Camp cartoon. This is proof of what even the most cute and lighthearted of concepts can lead into when put into the right hands, and how sometimes art is much more than what it may seem at first glance. But let's not get too far ahead. We still have 2 more arcs to go through in this season alone. After 3 flashback stories, we're finally back to the present day, with a time travel plot that mostly takes place in 1794. It still halfway counts. This one starts with Oscar being left alone with Mortimer here, and the boy is introduced to the Monsters Memory Bottle collection, used to, in his words, audit the past. And it's here where he finds out that Mortimer was rejected to this prestigious secret society back when he was at Harvard.
Your face isn't as intense as your impressions, but your lack of expression is somehow even more heartbreaking.
So, being the short-sighted but still well-meaning kid he is, Oscar decides to use that bottle to take himself to Harvard in order to cheer Mortimer up. Also, he's wearing Where the Wild Things Are pajamas. From that point on, it honestly kinda has the most traditional structure of all these mini-series, like it actually seems to follow a somewhat standard 3-act structure. The first part has Oscar trying to blend into the monster classes and learning more about their historical customs. And to continue the trend of these mini-series all having connective tissue, Mildred also gets mentioned in this scene.
Well, slap my ears and call me Mildred.
By the end of that, Oscar reveals his motives to past Mortimer, which leads into the second part, where the monsters actually try to get their society formed, only to get refused by who else but Stuart, you know, that jerk, and the sneak mission develops from there.
Ava, be careful. I just need to get a better... It's okay. I can reach the book.
This gets resolved with them deciding that they don't need official verification to feel like a society. So that seems to close the book on the conflict. The problem is, Oscar can't remember how to go back,
Was I supposed to book a return ticket?
which ends up being the focus of part 3. Which happens to also majorly involve this mage and coffee, and okay, maybe this isn't all that traditional, but stick with me here.
Modern coffee trash, it's got no heart. Emotions, where are they? In here. I've got coffee so good it'll bring a tear to your eye. Why? I'll tell you. But first, I need to clean!
Although this is probably the mini-series that contributes the least to the show's continuity, there are still some things really worth pointing out here. Mainly, this is one of Oscar's stronger starring roles for sure. All his defining traits are on full display here. His curiosity in exploring the memory bottles, his short-sightedness in traveling without considering any ramifications or even if he has the plan figured out, Hedgehog, his friendliness and honesty with everyone, and most importantly, his optimism. How he goes out of his way to bring his monster friends together and to make sure they're left happy in the end.
We'll have members, and rituals, and feelings. Hedgehog and I do this kind of stuff all the time.
Remember too, his glowworm identity established a couple seasons ago, and he's only made more lovable. How he's using his positivity spreading powers to create a lasting effect on his friends. To the point where, when it looks like all hope has lost for him returning, they throw him a cheer-up party, welcoming him to Harvard.
If I have to be stuck in the past, I'm glad it's with you guys.
Aww. It's also just cool to see how a period of history like this is covered. We don't really get that big a look at the world or anything, it's all quite contained, but seems like the glimpse we get of the history lecture proves inherently interesting because of the mere fact it's an 18th century class full of monsters.
Like George Washington himself, I will escort our fledgling nation of feelings to sturdier days.
It's not much, but it goes to show how well this show handles its world building. Overall, this one may be a little light in the grand scheme of things, but it's still a great Oscar story, a great monster story, a great flashback story, just an entertaining 33 minutes all around. Just don't be surprised if you've suddenly forgotten about coffee. And with the last three-parter of the bunch, we get not only the only one of these entirely taking place in present day, but also a very unexpected kind of focus. Remember this kid Oliver? What about this girl Alexa? And her sister Lem? I'm guessing not. At least I never paid any attention to them in either of my viewings, and they usually are relegated to background appearances anyway. Don't get me wrong, they serve a clear function in the show as part of the collective, but it's hard to say they added anything of note as characters. But now, they all finally get a chance to shine, each with their own segment no less, as Susie does what she can to help these campers discover their magical identities. This may sound kinda bland at first, especially with such tertiary characters, but the crew here really know how to flesh them out into people we want to see succeed in their efforts. It's not even like their personalities are really that strong, but they just naturally carry a positive presence because of what their roles here represent. Seeing peers discover their true selves, starting to feel left out, wanting to feel special, that's a place I think many of us have been to as kids, and the voice acting alone sells that feeling a lot more than you think.
Does everyone get something like this when they find out?
Depends on what kind of magical creature you are. Shark told me during a one-on-one therapy session.
The episodes themselves are not the best. In fact, the second one with Alexa is kinda stupid. She's sent to this annoying cloud puncher. Yeah, there's another character I didn't mention before. She appeared once in season 1 and then again in the Yeti Confetti arc, and didn't add anything for me in either instance. But anyway, a bunch of training montages ensue, only for Alexa to eventually find that she is a giant. To mice.
I am a giant. A giant to mice.
Oh! You are a giant!
How is that a magical identity? We're all giants to mice. Maybe that's the joke, and I get this is a weird fantasy world, but I don't know, that just feels like a cop-out to me. But the other two have their moments for sure, especially as far as Susie herself goes. But let's be real, that's to be expected. And I do actually like just the fact that these folks were actually able to get some time in the spotlight for a change. The most interesting is undoubtedly Lem. As we discover she actually wasn't supposed to go to camp and forged her invitation so she could go with her big sister.
This looks like a ransom note and smells like a belly button.
No No one will know the difference.
So to avoid getting found out, she decides to go on the lam in frozen time. Of course, Ramona comes up and she gives the little girl some sage advice alongside some fuzzy time baby hijinks.
Quickly, Time Baby 1118. He can smell you. Close the window.
And I should mention for callback's sake, it's Lem's relationship to her sister that gets Susie to calm down in the end.
I just wanted to be near her. That's why I made a forged invitation.
Oh, this is a sister thing? Okay.
Apart from all that, there's not much more to say. It's pretty standard for what you expect from SCI by this late in the run. Some beautiful scenery, a bunch of nice character moments, Susie being the biggest mood ever. Yeah, it's far from the best note for a season like this to end on, but it works as a calm before the storm sort of miniseries, as there's only one more season left to go. Home stretch, folks. Let's see how it all ends.